What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning into the podcast. Before we get started, and I have my special guest here to chat with, I want to do a few housekeeping items, of course. First and foremost, though, thank you guys for all your support. These past 2 months have been epic. You know, our podcast has been growing exponentially, and that's because of you guys. You know, you guys are giving us the support. You know, me and Kirsten, my co-host, have the passion for this. We love having people on that are like-minded, that are inspiring. And I'm just super pumped to have this guest on here. I'm hyped, and I just recently found out about him, and he's got a hell of a story, amazing accomplishments. Just to give a few, you know, he's worked with Kendrick Lamar. He's worked with Steve Aoki. He's a part of Mike Stud's team, filmmaker, director, composer, producer. He's actually made a film in 2018 called Primrose. I strongly suggest you guys to check that out. And we're going to talk about it today on the podcast. But before we get started, please, if you got any value out of this podcast that you're about to listen to or prior episodes, just give it a like, give it a rating, leave a comment. It's the oxygen of the podcast. But without further ado, we got Jon, the motherfucking Kilmer filmer. What a butcher to the intro, but
I was just about to give you props for fucking crushing that intro, and then you called me Jim.
I'm not editing it out. I'm not editing it out.
Literally like 3 minutes of just crushing the intro, and then you're like, without further ado, Jon Kilmer.
That's so bad. But dude, Jon, thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate your time and coming on the podcast. But before we get started, just give you like 3-4 minute spiel of your background, who you are, where you're from, and what you were like as a kid, and then we'll start from there.
Oh, geez, where do I even start? Okay, I was kind of like one of the annoying kids growing up because I say from like an early age, like 13 years old, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I had my first camera. I was like shooting like my fucking Beagle running around the house and making like jackass movies with my friends, and then like a year after that, I picked up a guitar. I fell in love with playing music, rock music. Yeah. So early age, I was like, man, I definitely want to do something creative with my life. I want to do music. I want to do film. Mm-hmm. I never really, even today, I haven't really quite figured out which one I like better because I still do both. But I was one of those annoying kids. I was definitely the kid like in high school that like, you know, sat inside and played guitar all day. And
where are you from?
I'm from Boston, outside Boston.
Boston. All right. You big sports guy? Patriots?
Yeah. Yeah, of course. I mean,
Patriots and Red Sox. All right.
Yeah, Celtics, Bruins, you name it.
Love it, man. That's awesome. Like, okay, so in high school, what was your first camera? What did you start with? If you remember.
Dude, I wish I could tell you the exact. So I'm pretty old, by the way. I'm 30, so like I've been around the block a while. When I was like 13 years old, cameras were not digital. They were, you know, the mini DV tapes, like those tiny little tapes you got to load into the camera. Yeah, that's the type of shit I was shooting on. You know, it looks like a family video type of little cassette.
That's crazy, dude.
And I actually have I think I have it right here. I found it like when I was digging through my house recently. Like I like all these little tapes. I have like probably 100 of these things from
That's
like when I was
so awesome, man.
When I was like since I was 13 years old. But now I don't have like a fucking camera where I can like view the footage. So like I'm in the process of buying a camera, like a cheap camera, so I can like watch all those old tapes from when I was like 13 years old up until college. I used that type of camera. So
for sure,
there's probably some epic stuff on there, you know, just like where I got my start as a videographer. So I couldn't, it's probably like some type of Sony, like, you know, little camera you could get at Best Buy or something. And like, I would just bring it everywhere, man. I'd bring it everywhere and just film entertaining shit.
Yeah. So you started getting that space and you know, the rest is history, but how did it all form with the mics? Like, this is Mike Stud, and like, how did that friend group come about?
I guess like timing was huge for that. Cause I was, when I went to school at Hofstra University, which is like a small school in Long Island, New York. And when I graduated there, I kind of already had my foot in the door, like musically. I worked with like a couple artists who were like starting to make a name for themselves. So I guess I kind of had like a bit of a track record where I could move to New York City and, you know, live in like a shitty little apartment and like work out of my bedroom type of deal. And after about a year of that, is when I reached out to Mike via email. I think it just started with like, I sent a few beats. I think that's how it started. He only had a song or two out, and I just looked like someone I wanted to work with. So, I mean, that's kind of how it all started.
That's really cool, actually. That's kind of how I've started with my fitness stuff and like networking and building my brand, is just really just saying, hey, man, like, I like your stuff. Like, here's something that I can bring to the table.
Mm-hmm.
You know, who was like your big, like, or who was your first like person that you helped, like help him, but then also help yourself, like get a name for yourself? Like, when did it start picking up?
So another thing that was like, it's the universe, man. Like it's just kind of like landed on my lap. And like, I think everything that's happened to me has just been, I don't want to say fate because that's kind of corny, but like it's definitely the universe has steered me in a certain direction.
Yeah.
And it started, I was a fraternity guy in college.
What frat were you in?
SAE, Sigma Alpha Epsilon.
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah. I was a SIG App at Oregon State, but yeah, awesome.
Yeah. So when I was a junior, this dude who's like, you know, he was kind of a big rapper at the time, but this was like before streaming and all. This was like he had music on like MySpace, you know, like that's how artists got their music out back then.
Yeah.
So he was a big like MySpace rapper. His name's Chris Webby. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
No,
but Chris Webby is he's a rapper out of Connecticut, very well known on the East Coast for sure. Mm-hmm. And at the time, he was like a big, and he's a white kid. And like there weren't a lot of white rappers back then. This was like 2008 maybe. Mm-hmm. You had like Asher Roth, and this was like before Mac Miller, before Sammy Adams, before like, you know, that whole like college frat rap scene kind of came about. This is before that. Sure. So it was uncommon for like a white rapper to be like kind of well known back then. And he just happened to be one of them. And it just so happened that he pledged our fraternity when I was a junior, and he was a year below me. Yeah. And then he moved into the fraternity house. And then I was living at the time in the basement of the fraternity house. I had like a little recording studio down there. I used to like make beats in and shit like that. So he caught wind of that, you know, I was producing down there, and he told me he was an artist, and I saw he had like, you know, he was kind of well known, and like, you know, he had somewhat of a fan base. So he was the first person I ever worked with, man. And like, it's, you know, we spent probably 2 years just like making music, producing stuff. And like over those 2 years, he got exponentially bigger and more well known. So I kind of left college like, you know, people already kind of knew what I was doing, which was cool. So it kind of got my foot in the door.
Yeah. Did you go to school for, well, let me ask you this. Was filming at school of value to you? Like when you went to school and you took these classes, did you actually learn quite a bit? Or was it like, I actually have to like go do the work, learn it on the fly, like go on YouTube, like learn videos? You probably didn't even have that at the time. Like
YouTube tutorials was not YouTube was a thing, but like YouTube tutorials were not a thing like they are now at all. I'll tell you this, because like I know a lot of people write off college because it's so expensive and this and that, and like I agree with that. I think if you have the opportunity financially to go, you should go. But with that being said, I went to film. I majored in film, and I majored in film at like a very inconvenient time because the market. Like literally after I graduated, the market went from film to digital, like right when I graduated. So my whole teachings were for film, and then everything went digital. And I literally was just sitting there with my dick in my hand. I had no idea what the fuck I was doing because they didn't teach us it. And the market, it was like probably the biggest shift in the film industry was when everything went digital. And it just kind of happened at a very inconvenient time. So as far as like theory, I learned a lot, like screenwriting and like film theory and like all of that. I learned a ton. As far as technical skills of like, you know, learning how to use cameras and all that shit, we were taught on film cameras, and fucking no one shoots on film cameras anymore. So that was almost a waste. And like, I kind of bummed me out a little bit. And honestly, like my first movie that I shot a few years ago, like I learned more in that like year than I did all 4 years of college, hands down.
Yeah. And now that you bring up that point, let's talk about the movie. Like plug it a little bit and explain what the movie is, why you started it, and we'll go from there.
Sure. I mean, I think in the filmmaking aspect, that was kind of my ultimate goal, right? Is to make feature films. Like, it's something that it's like so like daunting because it's such a big task. You know, shoot a movie. Like, how the fuck do you do that? one day, I think it was 2017, I'm like, fuck it. I'm just going to write a movie. It's probably going to suck balls, but I'm just going to do it. I'm going to raise the money myself. Like I have enough of a following, I think, where I can fundraise it and whatever.
Yeah.
So we end up raising like 20 or 30 grand, and which is not a lot for a movie, by the way.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
I tried to pull a lot of favors. I went back to Boston, where I'm from, my family's from, and we shot it there in 13 days, which is not a lot of time to shoot a movie. A lot of people came out and did it for next to nothing, which was awesome because they just believed in the project, I guess. And yeah, man, like it was probably like a year to a year and a half, like from start to finish, of just like writing it, getting the money for it, shooting it, doing the editing, and like all that shit. It was like a year and a half process.
Yeah, for sure. If you could go back though, what were some things that you wish you could do over to improve it or make it better? Just be more efficient, right? More efficient with funding or anything like that.
No. So if I would do anything over again, and this is the thing, like no matter how big of no matter how big your goals are, like the only way you're going to get better is if you just get off your ass and do it. And you're going to have to suck for a while before you get good at it. And with music, it's one thing, like you can make a song, a lot faster than you can make a movie. That's why like a lot of up and coming filmmakers, I think they just they're a little too intimidated to just get off their ass and make a movie because it's so difficult, but I think you just have to get off your ass and just do it. And, I made so many mistakes. That was probably like what I enjoyed about it the most looking back, is that, I made so many mistakes that now I'm actually, starting to do my second movie. I'm already kind of like writing it and getting that ready. And I had just learned so much from doing the first one, and I'm sure I'll make a whole new round of mistakes on this one. But, I didn't when I wrote my first movie, I didn't write it economically. If you're making a $30,000 film, you have to write a $30,000 film, so that means less locations, less characters, no fucking car chase scenes, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I kind of made a lot of rookie mistakes in that aspect of not writing it efficiently. And, I never written a full feature script before, so it's one thing when you're writing it, it'll look good on the page, but then you get up there and you see your actors start acting the scenes out, and it just totally sucks dick. And you're like, oh my God, it looks so good on the paper, but it just sucks ass. This isn't natural. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
you kind of have to make those are mistakes you got to make, and now I have a whole new vision on how to write a screenplay, which is great because I feel like I won't make those same mistakes this time around. And, that's pretty much what I went through. That's what I would change, is writing a more efficient script, to answer your question.
Yeah. I guess another question I want to ask you, as far as behind the scenes work of the time it took and the amount of, sacrifice you had to make to get this going, and walk us through what it takes, really, briefly walk us through what it takes to even start the film, start writing it. What was going through your mind? How did you go about it?
Writing it was, the main rule of writing is just write what you know, So
yeah.
For anyone who's listening, the Primrose is about, essentially it's about a group of dudes who live in a house together, and they're all postgraduates kind of posing as undergraduates at this college. And it's kind of it's like an underground, secret party society, self-proclaimed secret society. So it's just a bunch of these mid-20 knuckleheads living on a college campus together in this party house. And speaking of write what you know, that's been my life since I can remember.
Yeah. I was going to ask you too, how you got inspired to do that,
Yeah. I've always been drawn to movies that kind of come around male camaraderie and being young and being with the group of dudes who all have that common goal of let's get fucked up, let's fuck bitches, let's party, let's
for sure.
And if I know anything, I know that for sure. So I kind of wanted to do a movie like that, but kind of give it a little more heart, so it's not just a tits party movie. So in a way, that's kind of what I wanted the type of movie I wanted to make.
Yeah, that's way cool. Yeah. Well, talk to me about your YouTube series with Mike. Touring is boring, or I think it's touring is boring. How did that go? How did that start? Was that your idea? Was it Mike's idea? And explain that a little bit.
Yeah. So just to give a little explanation of touring's boring, I'd say
it's fucking hilarious, dude. I'm dying at him.
Yeah, people love watching us live. I think for the very reason that, we like to party, we're relatable, we drink a lot, we like to have a good time. So right from the beginning, like I was the camera guy, and I got to kind of capture all the madness early on when we were performing, in front of 100 people at like some shithole bar. I got to capture all the madness, and since we're independent, we were far from professional, like our DJ was our tour manager, and like we were selling our own merchandise, and like we were running the business, and we were like, 23, 24-year-old idiots. So I got to kind of capture all that. And like, as I captured it, like it kind of showed like, who we are, and like how much of a good time we have at our shows, but it also shows kind of like the madness of like us fucking shit up and like,
exactly.
Just, and then when we started doing it, like we were like watching it and like, we're like, wow, this is actually pretty funny. Like we have no idea what we're doing, but we're having a great time. And like, I think it's very relatable and people find it funny. So we just started like making this very like sarcastic, like web series where like, we kind of talk about how awesome we are, but then it'd show us like how much we fucked up all the time. And like, what a shit show tour life was. And it kind of grew over the years to this like series that we made probably over 100 episodes of. And then we ended up getting a TV show. I don't know if you knew about that, but we got a TV show based on it called This Is Mike Stud that came out 2016.
Yeah, that was another thing I wanted to touch on. But taking a few steps back, staying on this, what was like a specific time during your guys' filming that a specific moment that you'll never forget? Like it was just a memorable, like whether it was a crazy story or like a funny moment. What do you remember on the top of your head? Like what's your most memorable moment with all those guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's no, it's not like I know most people are probably like thinking it's a ratchet story, but honestly, we're all from like the Boston area. We're from the Boston area. Mike is from Rhode Island. I'm from Boston. The first time we sold out Boston House of Blues, which is like a pretty big venue. It's like 2,500 people. First time we sold that out, and like I remember we ran out on stage in front of 2,500 like screaming people, and this was like 2014, I believe. So like we'd only been grinding for like 3 years at this point, which in retrospect is not a lot of time. It's pretty fast. And yeah, I remember like running out on stage, when Mike's coming on stage and just seeing like 2,500 people just going fucking ape shit.
That's so dope.
Yeah, and I'll never forget that moment. That was like, what a fucking rush, what a rush.
And a lot of people don't know that, and I know this because I did my homework on you. Sometimes you intro with electric guitar and do the national anthem. Am I right?
That was I can't believe they let me do it for as long as we did. We've since stopped doing it, but there was like probably like a year, there's probably like 2 year span where like, yeah, I would I said before in this interview that like I was a big guitar guy, and I think if I wasn't doing this, I'd probably be like, a lead guitarist in some rock band. Cause like, that's just my passion. I love playing guitar. Yeah. And I would just, that's how I'd intro the show. I'd come out and it'd just be me and the fucking guitar, and I'd shred for like a few minutes, and then I'd hit the national anthem, and people would sing along and like get all fucking hype and shit. It was like a great way to start the show, man.
Some Jimi Hendrix action to intro.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
That's so sick. That's crazy, man. Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, talk a little bit about This Is Mike Stud, what that's all about.
I mean, as like a videographer, that's your dream, right? Like, it's one thing to have a vlog on YouTube, which like, obviously a lot of people loved, but it's another thing to actually like take the show on the road with television. Like so we were like spending probably over 2-3 years, like trying to turn this into a TV show. And it was hard finding the right partners, and we had to be careful because like, Mike didn't want to be known as like a reality TV guy, because it would probably, people wouldn't take him as seriously, his music career seriously. So we had to be careful, and not a lot of networks were like willing to give us a lot of creative control, which is why we ended up going with a smaller network, Esquire Network, which is it's under the NBC umbrella. And honestly, dude, like for me, I know for some of the other guys it was a tough experience because we're on the road and there's a camera crew following us while we're on tour, and we have enough shit going on as it is. It's even harder to have like a fucking camera crew in your face 24/7. So for some people it's tough. For me, I loved it.
You thrived in it.
Yeah, like if I'm not gonna lie. Like I like the attention. I like camera crew following me around, and I like to entertain people. And I was single at the time, so like I got to kind of flourish. I got to show my true colors and stuff, and I honestly loved it, man. It was it's a shame we didn't get to keep doing it. It was during a time when small networks weren't really doing great because of all Netflix and Hulu kind of getting all the streaming services were getting big. So a lot of those small networks started to die out. And that was kind of one of them that died out. But I urge anyone to watch the show. You don't even have to know who we are or who Mike is. It's just a fucking entertaining, like honest. It's one of the only honest reality TV shows that are out there.
That's what I was gonna say. That's you are so authentic all the time. Like even on your podcast, like the YNK podcast, like you just don't give a fuck, like that's kind of how I am too. When I'm on like social media, like people ask me like, dude, you're literally the same person either on social, on podcasts, like whatever. I'm like, yeah, why would I change? Like I love what I do. I'm happy as hell being me. And that's the problem. Like people on social media like to display themselves a certain way and it's not it. It's not it,
Yeah, man. Yeah, you just gotta. I mean, I think that's like I can't read it right now, but it's like my pinned tweet that I've had up there for like a year now. It's like it says something along the lines of like, once you stop caring what other people think and you start caring about what you think of yourself, that's when life starts to be more fun.
Yeah, that's fire. Well said.
Yeah.
What would you argue that when you guys started going heavy on YouTube, did that help grow your guys' audience pretty substantially?
Yeah, I mean, we had a vlog about touring and our shows being like absolutely fucking shit show, and like with I'll paraphrase, but like with all the girls and the drinking and like the madness, we showed everything, and that only fueled the fire. That made people be like, "Yo, we got to get to one of these fucking concerts." For
sure. No, it hypes it up for sure.
So, yeah, definitely hyped it up, and like I'd say it really helped us out in the early years getting people to the shows.
Definitely. Who was some of the people that you worked with? Obviously, big names like including Mike. You worked with Kendrick Lamar and Steve. Who was your favorite artist that you've worked with, or just like someone that's high level that is successful? Who's someone that you've learned from that you really are inspired by?
Honestly, Mike, man. I mean, that's why I've been working with him for 9 years. It's like,
yeah,
I'm in a position now, luckily, where I can kind of work with whoever. Like I've done enough where I could probably work with whoever, but I stuck with this team just because it's like, we're constantly learning from each other. We kind of all have one common goal. We're very like-minded, and that's why we live with each other. So like, I say, even once you find people that you really gel with creatively, like you should stick with it, because like not everyone's that lucky to like have a group of people that are like-minded like that.
Yeah, for sure. And you guys adjusted from being in Boston to LA. Like what would you say are the changes from East Coast to West Coast? Like, do you like the LA area? Like, is it a little different? Like, would you want to go back?
Yeah. I mean, we're kicking around the idea of leaving LA actually.
Really?
Yeah. Potentially maybe going to Nashville.
Wow. Okay.
I know. But I think that's just because, I think the time we spent here was valuable and important because, the industry's out here. The entertainment industry is very much, prominent out here, especially music. So I think the time we spent out here was good. Definitely different. I mean, I lived in New York City for 5 years before I came out here.
So different pace.
Yeah, you talk about New York and LA, it's apples and oranges. Like both good in their own way. Some people can't handle New York. I think it, gave me some thick skin, and it kind of gave me like a good mindset as a young, like 20 something, trying to grind and make a name for myself. But, LA can be tricky, because it's very easy to fall off your path out here. Cause it's just such like, it's summer every day,
Yeah.
You got the beaches there, and you got the girls here, and like the parties are great. Like you could fall off track super quick out here. So like it can be tricky, but I think the time we spent out here was very time well spent for sure.
Yeah, when I visited New York 2 springs ago to see my buddy that is working for NFL Films, and man, when I was downtown by Wall Street and like going by Yeah, you know, like
Yeah.
downtown area and seeing all these buildings, right? And people are just moving. People are just everywhere. It really inspired me, man. Like my ambition just skyrocketed. I saw the Brooklyn Bridge. Like I'm, you know, small city, Portland, not too much going on in Portland as far as like seeing all these huge skyscrapers, right? And yeah, I definitely had that feeling of like grind and ambition when I was there because everybody's just moving. Like they don't sleep. They're just going. And LA's just a little slower paced, relaxed, and like too many homeless people.
There's a lot of homeless people in LA. I'd say one flaw of New York is like people, I don't think people have like that great of a mindset in New York as far as their ambition is like incredible and their work ethic is incredible. But outside of that, like, you know, there's obviously so much more to life than like get up, go to work, come home, cook dinner, go to bed, get up, go to work. You know what I mean? Like there's so much more to life than that. And I think, you know, people in LA obviously haven't figured out. It's like the other end of the spectrum, right? It's like, you know, you hear different words in LA like vibe and wave and I used to think it was fucking like corny as shit. You know, when I moved here, everyone's like, what's your vibe? What the fuck are you talking about? What my vibe is? Now it's like every other word out of our mouth is like, what's your vibe? What's the vibe?
Yeah, what's your vibe? Dude, that is not so over here. That's definitely LA.
Yeah,
that's
so
crazy.
Like, everyone in LA is about like your energy and like the energy you give off and your vibe and like, you know, I used to think it was bullshit, but I get it now. Like I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. Like I get it. And like, I think mindset is so important and like having an equal balanced mindset is so important. So I'm lucky that I got to kind of get both ends of the spectrum of New York and LA. And, you know, I feel very well balanced because of it.
Yeah. Was it, like when you were touring just with Mike, what was it like going overseas, like going to Europe? What was that vibe like, you know?
It's insane. We've only done one European tour and it was like 6 years ago.
Wow.
I don't know. Like, I mean, when you're independent, it's kind of a big, it's a big move to do an independent tour overseas. You know, it's like, that's a hard thing to do on your own. So like, I get it, but we did it at like a time when we were like, you know, relatively inexperienced still, you know, it was 2014, I think. And that was fucking awesome, man. Like that was like going back in a time machine and like, you know, I referenced we were doing, you know, 2,500 tickets in Boston like in that same year. But when you go overseas, like people are just starting to kind of find out about you. So it's like you hop in a time machine and you're playing in these like little shitty bars again. And it's like, and it's awesome. And like, they love you so much. And like, they're so fucking passionate about it. You start to see people who are like speaking different languages and shit. And you're like, holy fuck, like how the fuck do these people even know who we are? You know what I mean? And like, you have like these German kids that are like, touring's boring. I was like, Jon Kilmer, he filmed about touring. And I'm like, holy shit, these fucking German kids are like rocking with us this hard. It's very humbling and like very cool. And man, some of that video footage is priceless because like, you know,
is it live? Is it on YouTube at all?
You know, we didn't have to, but we made the decision to take Tori's Boring off YouTube because just, you know, it's a different social climate today. And, you know, we've definitely matured a little bit. I don't want to say a lot, but we've matured a little bit. And I think it's like, you know, that's kind of dicey stuff to have out there on the internet now these days, especially with everything that's going on. So it's just kind of more trouble than it's worth. And, you know, a fun part of our past. But, you know, obviously time to move on a little bit.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. So let's talk about like cameras and let's talk about like what you would suggest for, let's say someone that's just going into the space that wants to get really serious. Like what would you say is like the starter kit of like what you should get and like what do you use now? And then we'll just kind of go from there.
For cameras?
Yeah, for cameras.
Yeah. I mean, this is an interesting time.
Because a lot of people using phones.
I know. See, here's my thing. What's different, it's so different now than when I was younger and just starting out because now I feel like everyone's an equal playing field, right? Like anyone can buy a camera for like, or even use their phones. Like you can shoot a 4K video on your phone and it like looks pretty good. Or you can go out and buy like a $500 or $600 camera and like it looks, you know, relatively pretty good. And that wasn't like a thing when I was starting out 10 years ago. You know, you couldn't spend $500 and get like a pretty professional looking camera. So more than ever, there's more people starting to shoot video than ever. So like there's just more people at the bottom starting out. And I think what sets people apart in the beginning are the ones who actually have like knowledge of filmmaking. You know what I mean? Like, whether it's like theory or just like, that's like in the beginning, I think that's what's going to set people apart. And what's great is you don't have to go to college for it. I mean, like you were just saying, there's tutorials you can learn anything on YouTube today.
Yeah.
You know, like the access of knowledge and information it's just exponentially growing year after year. So I would like, if you're starting out, I know you're asking me like what type of camera, and I'll get to that. But if you're starting out and like you're worried that you don't have like enough money, or like you don't know like if you can make a lot happen with like a small camera, like what's going to set you apart is if you watch those tutorials. As like boring as they are sometimes, like sit there and just watch them on YouTube. Learn about film theory, learn about cinematography. There's literally endless people like explaining, how to do it. And like, it's the information's out there and it's free. It's 100% free. You know what I mean? So the only thing holding you back is you just have to, I still do it to this day. I still learn shit on YouTube, whether it's music or video producing. Like I'll sit there and I'll watch a whole fucking tutorial on something that I don't know how to do. After, working a camera for 15 years, I still do it. So I highly recommend that. Because that's going to be more important than what camera you have, to be honest with you. The camera that I use right now is a Sony A7S, which that's known as like a mirrorless camera. And those are a little pricier. Like those, I want to say like, if you have a couple grand to spend, that's probably one of the better ones.
Okay.
Because it's a very small camera. But honestly, like, technology changes so fast.
I know, man. It's crazy. I have right now, like just showing people, those tuning in on via audio, you probably can't see it, but I have the A6400 Sony. I just use it for vlogging and like do my fitness content. But like my buddies, they have little higher end stuff with like the. But
that's a great camera that you have.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on it? Like for vlogging?
Yeah, that's how much is that? Like a $700 or $800 camera?
I think it's about, no, it's not even that much. I think it's like 500.
500. I think I got my brother that camera. Because my brother like is getting into photography. I think I got him that, or a very similar camera to that. Just so because like what's great now is like a lot of these cameras double as photography cameras, which is like it's fantastic. You can get double bang for your buck. So that's Sony for years, for the past like couple of years, have been like really really good with 4K like for not a lot of money. I think a lot of people are really into the Blackmagic cameras now. I know that's what we use for our podcast, and I think I think it's like a better image for like that price range if you can have like a couple $1,000 to spend.
Yeah.
That's the I believe they just came out with the Blackmagic 6K, the Blackmagic Pocket 6K, it's called. Okay. And then the model before that was the Blackmagic Pocket 4K. Those cameras are fantastic for the price. Again, if you have that to spend, if you don't have a couple grand to spend, honestly, like it's not I don't think it's like a huge deal what type of camera you get, like
yeah.
you can ask around to like if people have, cameras like yours, if you would recommend it, just get it and start using it, like
yeah, exactly.
You're not going to be Scorsese day one, but just get it, use it, have fun, shoot some stuff, and like, just get your beak wet.
Right. Especially with the 6400, there's so many tutorials out there. Like you just got to learn the camera, what you can do with it. And you can get creative with it just by knowing how you can change like ISO, like the lighting, and change all these different things. Like I bought this, I actually have it with me right now. It doesn't really go with my camera. It goes with my phone, but it's called the Moza Mini S. I put this with my phone and I make
stabilizer.
Yeah, stabilizer. Oh my God, dude, this thing is sweet. $70. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So same thing, like camera. I mean, the last 10 years, I can't believe how like incredible camera equipment has come. Like, especially with camera stabilizers. Like now for like the Sony I have a stabilizer that's like $700, and it keeps that shit like it makes it look like a fucking movie. That's what we use on tour, and it's literally like the size of like a half of a baseball bat. It's like tiny.
Crazy.
And it holds like my little 4K camera, and I can literally get like movie quality shots on tour when I'm like wasted. And it looks unreal. Like it looks like the most unreal footage ever.
and it's, the stabilizer's $700, and same with like drones. Like, oh my God, before drones, you had to shoot out of a helicopter, I'm like, so
The drones are so sick. They're so sick, dude.
Now you can get like a movie quality drone for like $500 or like $1,000, and it looks incredible. So it's, another thing I would recommend for people too is just because technology changes so quickly, it's never been easier to rent camera gear too, especially if you're in a major city. I mean, there's websites like KitSplit and ShareGrid where, people are renting their own gear out. You don't have to go to a rental house anymore. You can rent from like another guy who just gear out, and you can pay, next to nothing. It's never been cheaper to rent nice camera gear. So I definitely recommend that too.
Mm-hmm. Do you, as far as your own personal content and like maybe your podcast content, are you using an iPhone for a lot of your content, or like, is it pretty more high end work?
No, our podcast, I said before, was the Blackmagic Pocket 6K. My camera, some videographers that do a lot of work. So camera that, we've done it with my camera, we've done it with that camera. I think the Blackmagic looks a lot better in my opinion.
Cool.
And they're around the same price range. The only downside with the Blackmagic is they're kind of big and clunky. Like they're kind of like a weird shape. And it's kind of like an inconvenient shape. And they're a little bigger, but I think, man, they can just do so much more.
Yeah, I might look into that because I'm going to start ramping up my podcast because I'm getting more attention to the point where it's like, okay, let's take it another step and let's go with the video content, throw it on YouTube so people can, put a face to the voice. And it's a lot more fun like that too. But yeah, dude, that's good advice. Appreciate that. I know a lot of people are going to like that.
No problem.
I watched a podcast where you talked about Steve Aoki and Kendrick. I keep bringing it up. But what were those guys like working with them? Like their habits, their like work ethic. Did you take anything from them, or were you like, wow, like this dude is like, I think I'm busy. Like I know Steve is one of the busiest guys.
Yeah. This was 2013, I believe. So like I was pretty young in my career. I was lucky enough. So the way I got that gig was like not through the artist, but it was through the production company of that tour. That was a 35 city college tour along like the East Coast, more or less.
Yeah.
And my buddy was the one who produced the tour. So like I was lucky enough to get hired as the videographer on that tour. So I'd say like, I got a lot more moments with Steve Aoki because he was just kind of more down to earth guy. He'd let me like, pretty much have like free run of the stage during his concerts. He does this one thing where he he like inflates a raft and like crowd surfs on the raft. So there was one night he like actually let me go in there. It was actually my birthday. He let me go in there.
Dope.
Like crowd surf on the inflatable raft in front of like 10,000 people. It was
holy shit.
I was also super fucked. I was super fucked. Yeah, I was really fucked up too. So it was hilarious. It's like as far as like FaceTime, I got a lot more FaceTime with Steve Aoki, and he's like a super down to earth guy, super chill. You could tell he's been fucking touring his dick off for years, and he's like, it's just like part of who he is. So that was great, and it was cool being around Kendrick just because this was like right when he was starting to blow up. Like it was, like what's that song called? Like pour, drink, two shot, drink.
Oh yeah, swimming pools.
Swimming pool, yeah. So like that shit was just coming out and it was like just starting to blow up. So like,
wow,
he was like, people were going ape shit for him too, man. And like, he was a lot more standoffish, I think, in the way that a lot of rappers are. Like, they kind of big league people, just
yeah,
like,
dude.
There's a little more like ego drivenness in that world, I think. So like, and not to say that as a judge on his character. I think that's just kind of more how those artists are. So like, I didn't get as much FaceTime with him, but I was still filming his shows and stuff like that. But like, it was, I can't really say I was around him enough to really like say I learned anything or know enough about him.
Yeah, but you'd say he's pretty reserved. I mean, he just looks like he's very quiet, like a man of few words, and then he just goes out. Like when he starts spitting, he just gets in his zone. Yeah,
man, and he loves his fans. A very grateful guy, and like over the years, back then, a lot of people didn't know much about him. He's more of like an enigma, but now, like he's been around for so long. Like I think you kind of get the idea that he's just like a super down to earth guy. Like very down to earth.
Yeah. Yeah. And after watching, that's cool to hear that from you. As far as Steve, I've watched his documentary, you know, like how crazy his life is. What have you picked up from him? Like maybe like just philosophy, or like, has he said anything to you, or like you've seen him do things that you've taken from him or anything like that?
Yeah, dude. I mean, he treats people like everyone is equals. Like no matter who the hell he's hanging out with, you know, like I didn't know him from a fucking hole in the wall and he didn't know me, but like the second he knew like, oh, like I see this guy every day and we're on tour together, like he just treats me like a normal fucking human being, which is like, at the time I was super young, you know, I was just starting in the industry. I was like probably 25 years old or something like that. And
Yeah.
he just treated me like a fucking normal dude, which is like all you'd ever hope for as like a young kid. Because like I was nervous to do this tour because like I wasn't that experienced in like, you know, being with these big names. So like, you know, being at the level he was at is like this huge EDM artist, like just treating you with like respect and everything. Like that's all you could ever hope for. And like, I definitely respected the hell out of it, you know, like just super cool guy.
That's so
and his
cool.
His work ethic is fucking unreal, you know, like I would love to know how many shows he does a year. It's probably like 250 shows a year, you know, like almost every night. So that's, I mean, and he's not a young guy. He's probably in his 40s. Mm-hmm. So like, you know, like to be able to do that at that age, it's fucking incredible.
It's crazy, dude. And they talk about his dad, what his dad did. Like he was crazy too, man. But like what blows my mind is like the consistency factor of what he does. And like you were saying, just so friendly and nice to literally everybody. Like when he was on Joe Rogan's podcast, like the dude just sends off those, we talk about vibes and everything. Great vibes, dude, yeah. Great vibes guy.
Man, there was one concert, I'll never forget this, where like, you know, while the stages are getting set up, you have like all this downtime during the day. And like, you know, especially artists, like they have fucking nothing to do, you know? So I remember like roaming around the campus because this was a college tour. We were in some school, like in upstate New York or something. We were just kind of like bopping around campus trying to find something to do. And he saw like this door that said gymnasium, and he opened it, and it was a whole like gymnastics room, like a huge, like it's probably like a D1 gymnastics gym. And, you know, they got like the foam pit and like the pommel horses and like the trampolines. And he's like, you guys want to like do gymnastics? I was like, yeah, I'll do some gymnastics. So like I spent the afternoon doing gymnastics with Steve Aoki. It was fucking hysterical.
So fucking sick.
You know? So like just to have like he's got such like a fucking young heart, and like, I don't know, like I like people who are like young at heart and like still not, like they don't take themselves too seriously, and they still know how to have fun and everything. So that was a fucking blast.
Yeah, man.
I'll never forget that.
No, you said it best. Just people that don't take life too serious. Like you guys, like you and him both, like obviously are grinding, and you just have fun with it too. You know, when you get too serious, it's not good for you mentally. But dude, he was even like screamo when he was younger. Like he was in like a screamo band. Like he really switched it up dramatically.
Yeah, that's insane.
That's cool to hear, dude. This is going to be interesting. I kind of want to flip a script here on questions, but as far as you personally and like mentally, when in your life, when you had hard times, like walk us through a few of your hard times and how you might have overcome them or gotten yourself out of that rut.
I mean, just to be very clear, like I've been so blessed in my life to never really had to go through a hard time as far as, you know, you put your hard times against everyone else's. Mine have not been so tragic, and like I'm so grateful for that. And, you know, so every issue I have or any like downcomings I have, like I take it with a grain of salt because I know there's someone out there that's going through a lot fucking worse shit than I am.
Right.
But with that being said, you know, we talked about this in one of our last podcasts where it's like, I think being happy is like, you know, waking up with purpose every day, and like know that whatever you're doing and whatever, you know, you're going towards or striving towards every day, you're happy you're doing it, and you have a smile on your face, and you just feel like you have a sense of purpose doing it. So there's been moments in my career where like I've, felt like I had no purpose, and like, a lot of shit just like changed over the years where like I started doing music videos a lot, and then like I started like, not doing a lot of music videos, or like we didn't tour for like a year and a half, and I was kind of like sitting on my ass and I wasn't doing music videos, and like we weren't doing the podcast yet. And like, I woke up every day and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I didn't have any goals of my own, or like, there was nothing I was like getting up excited to do every day. And like, I know like fucking poor me, like I'm waking up, in this big house in Los Angeles, but like, if I'm going to say anything, I was waking up without purpose every day. And it doesn't matter who you are, if you're dirt poor or filthy rich, like if you have no purpose, you're going to be sad. You're not going to know what you're supposed to be doing. So I definitely went through those. I went through months and months of those, like just those times where like I didn't know what the fuck I was supposed to be doing. And I'm lucky now that, especially with this whole quarantining and everything, like we've kept so busy, and I've never been more busy, and I've never had more projects happening at the same time, where it's like, as stressful as it is, I'm grateful that I can wake up with that purpose.
Yeah. What's going on right now for you? How are you handling COVID? What are your thoughts on it? And like, if you can, like, share a few things that you're working on. Like, you have the floor. Let's hear it.
Sure. So from like a business standpoint, I still very much try to keep my film side and my music side like very much alive. I try to like balance it as much as I can. So from like a filming aspect, I mean, obviously we have our podcast going on, which is like kind of like my anchor. It's like what I do probably the most consistently, because we put the episodes out every week. And just to let everyone know, like, we have a very small team with this podcast. We all record it, and I kind of like, I produce it, and we have like a videographer that comes help us film it. But after that, like I edit the audio, I put the ads in, I edit the video, and I make sure it gets made every week. So that's my anchor, and like I love doing it, and it's it's something that I do week after week, and that's the most consistency I have right now. But beyond that, like like I mentioned, I'm working on my next movie, and that's going to be the next year is going to be like a fucking grind, making sure that we have funding for it, it's written properly, and all that shit. And this is kind of not exciting, but it's a very like interesting time for the film industry, because nothing can get made right now, because like everything's shut down.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I'm making sure that I'm taking advantage of this downtime where I can be as creative as possible, and like when we're out of it, and like and film sets can come back up again, like I'm going to be prepared, and I'm going to be able to shoot a movie. So I'm just making sure that I have funding, and I have like a fantastic script and a fantastic team, by this time next year, or maybe even earlier. So that's another thing I'm working on. And then, as if that wasn't enough, I'm getting into music production again, which is something I've done off and on for the past, 15 years, probably.
Yeah.
I'm actually working with an artist that's out of Seattle, the Seattle area. And he's a young kid. His name's 44 Phantom. He's like an 18. Yeah, he's an 18. We've been working probably the past 8 months, but he's an artist, like a buddy of mine who's managing him brought him to me, and he's like, what do you think? And I'm like, oh, like, he's actually really dope. And he kind of like, as far as like being like-minded, as far as the type of music he likes to make and likes to listen to, like I think we kind of gel in that aspect. There's like a lot of like rock inspired stuff that he likes to do.
Yeah.
That I think I'm definitely like a really good match for. So we've been gelling creatively like for the past 8 months, and we're just starting to put our music out. We put an EP out in March, but the new wave of stuff we've been working on is just starting to come out again. So definitely urge everyone to check him out. 44 Phantom, very, very dope artist. He's only 18 years old. So it's, it's funny, like seeing someone just starting out,
dude.
With an old piece of shit like me that's been around the block a little bit. So it's fun, it's fun.
Yeah. And it's gotta be cool too, to like help this kid out, like guide him, and like here he has this talent, but really doesn't know what to do with it. And so that's cool. You get to work with him.
Yeah, no, he's very talented. So I definitely, everyone who's listening, check him out. He's really dope. We just released a single a couple weeks ago called "Save Me."
Save me. Yeah, for sure, bro. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll plug it for sure. That's cool.
Yeah, dude.
So, dude, you are unbelievably busy. Like, how have you adapted with COVID? Like, you said you've been taking opportunities, but like, what's your day-to-day like right now? Like, are you all at home? Are you like seeing people in studios or what?
Yeah, we're still, I'm still working with people, and we're trying to stay away from like huge gatherings, but it's you can only like quarantine for so long.
Yeah,
it's tough, but we still have studio sessions, and like we keep it pretty low key and everything like that. But yeah, dude, COVID's been tough because like all these things that I'm mentioning, like with the exception of the podcast, which you have to kind of be on a regiment because like it has to come out at a certain time every week.
Mm-hmm.
So like I'm kind of on a schedule with that, but everything else like is kind of on me. Like I have to wake up every day. I have to feel inspired, and like I have to just do this shit. And like if I'm not feeling inspired or like procrastinate and I'm lazy, like that's on me. I don't have like some higher up saying like, "Hey, you got to get this done,"
Right.
So like I would say it's hard to stay inspired during these times, and it's all about adapting and creating positive habits for yourself, which isn't always easy. And I'll be the first to admit that like I've fallen off track during this quarantine a million times. Where like I adapted really great habits and I kind of like fell by the wayside and stopped doing them. And it's tough. It's tough to stick with it. But some things that have like really helped me though during this time is to one, get the fuck out of the house and like go walk around during the day.
Yeah.
I do this thing during the day, like for at least 30 or 40 minutes a day. I'll just go outside and I'll put on an audiobook on my fucking headphones and I'll just walk around the neighborhood for 40 minutes. And I'll like, I'll learn something new, and I'll like walk around and get a little exercise, get like some mother nature and get the fuck out of the house. And then that's usually been like a nice little thing to keep me sane, during these times. Cause we don't get up and go to a job. I work out of my bedroom, or our studio is right, 20 feet from my bedroom. So like,
that's dope.
You can really get, cabin fever is like very much a real thing. So
for sure. What are you tuning in on? What audiobooks are you tuning in on? Like, what are your top three right now?
I've been going through, I don't know if you're familiar with Malcolm Gladwell. He's a pretty big
10,000 hours.
Yeah, exactly. So I've been just going through his catalog. I'm on my fourth book now with him. I'm listening to Blink, which is about like making snap decisions and like the pros and cons of making snap judgments. And that was, to be honest, like probably my least favorite so far. It's a little boring, but some of his other books are like absolutely fantastic. There's the one you were just referencing, I believe is called Outliers.
Yeah.
Outliers is probably his most famous book. I recommend that to anyone. David and Goliath is a fucking fantastic book. It's just about like overcoming odds. It's very relatable for anyone, trying to accomplish anything. It's just a book about how people, defied odds, to overcome something tragic in their life, or, reach like a huge goal in their life. And then another book I read by him was called Talking with Strangers, which is how like humans don't understand each other, and like how we should, communicate with people differently, because like we're all living our own lives, and we all have like, we all come from like a different background and everything like that. So I think that's like, just for communicating in general, that's an important book to read too. So definitely recommend that.
Cool, man. Thanks for giving that advice. That's dope. I'm gonna definitely check that out. As far as advice with podcasting, what would you say, other than the fact that you have leverage, you have an audience, you built your brand, what are some tips or tidbits that you would offer to somebody that's just doing a podcast? I always ask this to people that are like have a podcast because I'm curious. But what are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts are, I think it's fantastic, and that's the reason why I tweeted that out the other day. That
I saw that
I wanted to get on people's podcasts, because like I think it's fantastic that it's never been so easy to podcast, and podcasts are just super popular now. It's like, I think it's important that people can have like an outlet that's different than, Twitter, for example, where like you're not giving an opinion that's only 100 and whatever characters, but you can actually sit for like an hour and like actually give your opinion on something that's like thought out, you know what I mean, on whatever you want to talk about. And then you have all these audiences that, have the opportunity to listen to these opinions that are like very thought out. So like, I just think it's like such a better way to, communicate and get your voice out there. And I promote it. And if you're just starting out, I'd say my advice, there's two sides to it. There's one, consistency, and then there's two, the content you're putting out. So consistency is probably the most important. And, you look at Joe Rogan as an example. He's done it for over 10 years. Now he's, he signed a deal for over $100 million with Spotify.
Crazy, dude.
And
And, I get it. 10 years ago, he wasn't a nobody,
Right.
but at the same time, podcasting wasn't, really a big thing 10 years ago either. So, but if you can take anything from it, it's like, wise words of Mike Studd over here. It's just to keep going. If you're doing it and you're enjoying it, then you should just, consistently put out an episode every week, put it out every week. And if you're doing it for 2 years, great. And you're not seeing any progress after 2 years, that's fine. Like, do it for another 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I bet you during those next 2 years, like, there'll be one pivotal thing where, like, you get one big guest you didn't think you'd get, and your viewership tripled, just from that one little event. And then that'll give you, like, the inspiration to go another 2 years, and then something will happen during those 2. Just keep going, The other side of it is the content. And I would say, since there's so many podcasts out right now, I think there's like over, a couple million podcasts that are out right now. Yeah. Spotify just announced that on their platform alone, there's like 1.5 million podcasts. So
crazy.
If you're going to do a podcast, like don't worry about it too much, but keep in the back of your mind that you're in a pool of 1.5 million other people. What are you going to do that's going to give a fresh perspective? What makes you different? What makes you special? And it's okay if you don't have the answer in the beginning. It's like, don't let that stop you from doing it, because persistence, I think, and consistency is like the main thing. But keep in the back of your mind that, like, you're in a pool of a lot of people, and you have to give a perspective that's fresh, and like, it might take you a few years to figure that out. But keep it in the back of your mind. Is very important. Like, you have to give people a reason to listen to you. It's like, why are they coming to you for this opinion?
100%. Yeah. And I think the coolest part about podcasting is building your confidence to not only speak with people, but like, you kind of find your voice, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. Have you seen the movie Private Parts? It's the movie about Howard Stern.
No.
So Howard Stern, I mean, I would hope everyone knows who he is, but
yeah, I
mean, he came up as one of the biggest and edgiest radio personalities, and like since then he's got his own show on Sirius. I think he's a judge on like one of those talent shows or whatever. But he's Private Parts is it's a scripted film about his life, but he stars as himself, and it kind of it gives you the story of just kind of like how he got into the radio business and how he became as big as he did. And if it's one thing I took from that movie, it's that you just have to fucking keep it 100%, and you have to be yourself. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Don't be fake. Don't fucking put on like some fake ass bullshit. Like, be yourself, share your opinions no matter what other people think.
Yeah.
And as long as you're being yourself and you're being real and you're saying, like, even if it's embarrassing, even if like it's fucking super embarrassing, keep it a fucking buck. People will respect it. I think people are drawn to authenticity, and as long as you're being yourself, that people are gonna fuck with you, man. Like, they're gonna
you can't hold fucking anything back. You just have to say you just have to be 100% yourself, and that's why he became so popular, is because if you watch the movie, he starts off trying to be like this radio personality that's not necessarily authentic to him, just what he thought other people wanted to listen to.
Yeah.
And he didn't really get anywhere, and then the second he started fucking keeping it a buck, and he started like telling these embarrassing stories about how he's got a small dick, and like he starts like talking like about like all this sexual stuff and like these personal stuff about his life that's like not necessarily like appealing or making him look good. People started fucking with him. They were like, yeah, I fuck with this guy because he's keeping it real.
Yeah,
and
sure.
Of course, the networks hated him. He's ended up working for NBC in New York, and like they, the corporate people hated him because like he was so edgy, and he's talking about sex, and he's like, he's talking about stuff that like is not that like PG, I guess.
Yeah, it's inappropriate as hell, which is
it's inappropriate as hell.
What people
that's probably why he went to Sirius, because he probably couldn't get away with it anymore. But but man, like, people fuck with authenticity. Like, you just got to be fucking real,
Yeah.
And like, I made a promise to myself that with our podcast, whenever I'm on there, like, I'm going to talk about whatever I want to talk about. I'm going to be totally honest. And like, I've had many humbling moments in my life, and I think when I'm honest about it and I talk about it, it's it's entertaining to people, because like, yeah, it's embarrassing, but I'm being fucking honest about it. Like a few episodes ago, I talked about how like years ago I slept with a female bodybuilder, and she, like,
I'm not gonna lie, she looked kind of like a dude from the neck down, but I'm a do it for the story kind of guy. And like I shared my experience of that, as well as I could remember it. And I would hope people would, one, find it entertaining, but like two, would just respect the honesty.
Man, was she pretty big?
She was pretty big. Not like
intimidating.
Definitely intimidating in the bedroom, but like if you just saw her on the street, I mean, like she's like she's as built as I am. So like I'm not like I don't look like a thick ass bodybuilder, but like she looked like a muscular dude, more or less, from the neck down.
Super toned. Oh, dude, man, I would just feel wrecked, like from a confidence standpoint. I'm like, God damn, like this girl can kick my ass.
I know. I'm very much a do it for the story kind of guy. So like I've been journaling for like 5 years just because like I always find myself in these like very interesting situations. So like I started writing about them like 5 years ago. Like I probably have the funniest book on planet Earth if I were to publish it, but my parents wouldn't be too thrilled about it.
Oh my God. That's what it comes down to. Hey man, who knows? Maybe before you die, you release it.
Yeah, we'll see.
Awesome, dude. That's so good. All right. Well, I don't want to keep you for too long, but I do appreciate you jumping on here.
Of course, man.
Just two more questions, and I gotta ask you, bro. What's with the mustache? Is it just for the looks, or is there something going on, like the COVID stash? What is it?
It's a combination of things. I think one, all the boys in the house can grow these like fucking huge, manly, like burly lumberjack beards. And dude, for the life of me, dude, I can't grow facial hair on my cheeks. Not fucking one hair on my cheeks. It's mind blowing. I can't even grow chest hair. People think I shave my body. Can't grow body hair. I can't.
Rough.
So like, if I were to choose facial hair, I could like this region right here. And I don't know if I'm like at the stage in my life where I want like a full on goatee. Like I did it during COVID for a while. People kept calling me Iron Man. They said I looked like Iron Man, like Robert Downey Jr. So
I buy it.
Maybe that's like when I'm like 40 plus, 45 plus, I'll go that route. But I'm in my 30s, man. Like I'm at like the height of not giving a fuck, Like I'm just like, I literally don't give a fuck. Like I used to do anything to impress a girl. Like I don't give a fuck anymore. I literally don't give a fuck. Maybe that makes me more attractive. I don't know. But I've always wanted to have a mustache. I think mustaches are coming back into fashion. I think in like a year or two, you're going to find a lot more people having mustaches. So look out for that. I'll be the one saying I told you so.
You said it on here. Everyone knows now. Yeah. It's happening.
And, I kind of dig it. I champion the mustache, and I urge everyone to grow one. It makes me, I think there's a whole Family Guy episode about how Peter grew a mustache and then like changed his whole personality. I totally vibe with that. Speaking of vibes, I vibe with Peter Griffin on that because like you feel like a different type of man with a mustache. And I think people perceive you differently. They see you differently as a mustache in a good way. So fuck it, man. I say if you want to grow one, go for it.
Bro, I had the dirty. If you go on my Instagram in college, my senior year, I just said fuck it. My spring term, I had the dirtiest. I curled it with wax.
And, fuck yeah.
Yeah, I was in front of I was like the teller. Like I call myself the professional card swiper at the gym. And so everyone would come in, they'd get their card, and they'd be like, "Damn, dude." Like, that's a good ass mustache. And I get like props from like old dudes be like, dude, you're doing it right. Like nuts. And I was like, thank you. Like, I put a lot of work in this,
Yeah. If you want to get knocked by a couple of old dudes, grow a mustache.
For sure.
Guys with that's like their own like secret society too. I feel like if you see another guy with a mustache and you don't know who he is, like you'll just give him that little head nod. You'll be like, like in your mind, you'll give him the little head nod, like, nice mustache, bro. And then he'll give you that little head nod. They kind of got like their own little like, I don't know, like little secret respect for each other. So.
It's a little community. Yeah.
It is a community. So fuck it. It's good to be a part of something.
Right. That's way cool, bro. All right, man. Well, last but not least, how can my listeners find you on social or like anything else of that nature?
Yeah. I mean, I'd say to get the best representation of me, listen to our podcast. It's called the YNK Podcast, or You Never Know, You Know What I Mean, for long. And it's just with Mike and me, and we kind of just chop it up. Our show's kind of like, I don't know, we look up to shows like Joe Rogan, but we're probably we're like the bro version of that, you know. We kind of, if you're a bro and you don't like, you know, how technical Rogan is, because Rogan can get very technical and it can get very scientific, and it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to make it relatable if you're kind of like a 20-something dude or whatever. So I think our show can be like a little more relatable. We touch, you know, on similar topics, but it's, you know, again, it's just a little more grounded and less technical. So YNK Podcast, check it out. Our socials are YNK_podcast on Twitter and Instagram. My socials are at Jon Kilmer. If you want to check out all the dumb shit that I do, and that's pretty much it.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for coming on the show. Guys, thanks for tuning in. If you got any value, please leave a review or a rating. Last but not least, make today count. We're out. Peace.